I remember the moment I realized the people closest to me could twist a story faster than I could catch my breath. One argument, one accusation I never saw coming, and suddenly I was the villain in a life I'd spent years keeping afloat. It wasn't loud or dramatic. Just a sentence dropped at the wrong time in front of the wrong crowd, and my world shifted. If you've lived through something like that, tell me your story in the comments. Chapter 1. The bonus landed in my hand late that afternoon, sealed in a plain envelope from the office clerk. Another year finished another round of routine maintenance jobs that kept the plant running through winter. I'd planned to move most of that money into a separate account the cardiologist told me to build after the scare last spring. A small safety net. Nothing fancy, just enough so an unexpected ambulance ride wouldn't wipe me out. Back at my apartment, boots still on, I checked my account. The number on the screen froze me. The entire bonus was gone. Not reduced. Gone. A text arrived before I could process it. Lydia wrote, "Borrowed some for the ski trip. We'll pay it back. Don't stress." My hand tightened around the phone. She knew exactly why I kept that fund separate. Knew it wasn't extra cash lying around. Knew I had a reason for protecting it. I called her. She answered with a breezy tone. "Dad, relax. We needed a break. Winter's been brutal. It's not a big deal." Marcus's voice cut in from the background, casual and smug. "Tell him we'll bring him a souvenir. He barely uses that money anyway." The line sharpened every word. "Lydia," I said, "don't touch my accounts again." A beat of irritation came through the phone. "You're overreacting. Marcus's parents wanted the whole family there. What was I supposed to do? Say no because of you?" Breath steadied itself in my chest. No yelling, no argument. That never changed anything. I meant what I said. "Dad, come on. You always do this. It's just money." The call ended when I pressed the button. Not abruptly, not slammed, just done. I stood there, coat still unzipped, staring at the empty space in front of me. The apartment felt narrow, as if the walls leaned closer while I tried to make sense of the situation. That bonus had lasted less than a day under my name. Several minutes passed without movement. Not anger, not shock. A different kind of understanding settled in. This wasn't the first time they'd used my resources as if they belonged to the household Lydia married into. Small withdrawals, favors disguised as emergencies, passwords she borrowed when things got tight. Every time I'd told myself it wasn't worth the fight. The phone buzzed again. A picture of Marcus in snow gear, thumbs up mountains behind him. Lydia captioned it, "Family time." I put the phone face down on the counter. No shouting match would stop them. No lecture would make them rethink the way they'd been moving through my life. People like that didn't change with speeches. They changed when the ground shifted. A chair waited near the small dining table, but I stayed standing, letting the truth settle where excuses used to sit. Lines had been crossed long before this trip. The bonus just made it impossible to ignore. Coat still on keys, still in my hand, I stepped toward the doorway, not fully sure where I was headed, only that staying still wouldn't help me see the rest of the picture. Chapter 2. East Washington Avenue stretched ahead, long and restless traffic rolling by in steady bursts. My steps matched the rhythm without much thought. Not sure what I was looking for out there, maybe a bit of space to sort the noise in my head. The bonus was gone. Lydia acted like it was nothing, and Marcus kept playing the part of a man entitled to whatever he touched. Each detail kept circling back a loop I couldn't quite break. Morning came fast. I showed up at the plant before sunrise, scanned my badge, and joined the first shift heading down the hall. A couple of guys gathered near the break corner, phones in hand, chuckling. One of them lifted his chin at me. "Hey, Ray," he said, waving his screen. "Didn't know you were bankrolling ski vacations these days." Another one chimed in, half teasing. "Man, that lodge they went to pricey. You must be feeling generous." A tight breath settled in my chest. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He turned the phone around. Lydia had posted photos with captions thanking me for covering the whole trip. She hadn't even bothered to soften the claim. They all saw it. Everyone probably thought I was the proud dad paying for luxury outings. I said nothing more. There wasn't anything worth explaining to them. Letting the comments slide felt easier than trying to correct a story already floating around. A man's reputation bends fast once people think they know the truth. Marina caught me during equipment prep. She had that look she used whenever someone tried to hide a bad day. "You seem stiff this morning," she said. "Just tired," I answered. She studied my face for a second longer but didn't push. Work dragged along. Machines needed calibration, belts needed adjustment, and I kept my hands moving. Not to stay busy, just to avoid thinking too hard. The noise helped a bit, though the weight under it didn't lift. During lunch, I stepped aside to check my phone. Lydia had sent a long message. "Don't talk to anyone about the money. It'll embarrass everyone if you make it a thing. Just keep it between us." Another bubble appeared right after that. "Please don't cause problems. Marcus's parents think you offered. Let's not ruin the mood." A strange kind of heat crept up my spine, not anger, something heavier. That message didn't come from worry. It came from expectation, as if I owed her my silence. Something shifted, then a small crack widening from the pressure. Back at my station, Marina drifted by carrying a clipboard she probably didn't need. "My son tried pulling a stunt last week," she said casually. "Wanted me to spot him for a gaming setup he didn't need. Kids know how to guilt their parents, always have." She paused, letting the words settle. "Some folks take advantage because they know who won't push back." Her tone wasn't pointed, but the truth in it nudged something raw. I didn't reply. A nod would have confirmed too much, so I just kept working, letting her words file themselves away. She didn't stay long, just moved on to the next station, leaving a faint echo behind. The day finally crawled to an end. Workers streamed out toward the parking lot, some laughing, some arguing about schedules. My feet carried me along the familiar path until my phone buzzed again. A notification from the bank request received to update secondary access credentials for account ending in 042. Lydia's old login hung in the back of my mind. She'd used it months ago when helping me set up online billing. Later, she insisted on keeping access just in case. The message stated someone had tried to modify that profile. My thumb hovered over the screen, while the hum of the parking lot faded. Someone had gone back into my accounts only a day after I told them not to. I stepped aside from the small crowd, leaving the plant. Cars pulled out one after another, engines rumbling. The cold bit through my jacket as I leaned against a concrete barrier. Whatever sense of family routine I'd held on to didn't line up with what kept happening. The line between care and exploitation had been blurred so gradually I hadn't noticed how far it spread. Marina passed by on her way to her car. "You heading out?" she asked. "In a minute." She didn't ask more, just gave a small nod and climbed in. The lot emptied until only a few vehicles remained. My phone stayed in my hand screen, glowing with the same notification. No anger rose this time either. Instead, a type of clarity formed, slow, steady, unavoidable. Things weren't slipping out of control. They had already slipped. I'd been pretending otherwise. A plan didn't form, but the denial cracked. This wasn't just about a trip, or a bonus, or one bad week. It was a chain of choices made by people who counted on me keeping my head down. I pushed away from the barrier and started crossing the lot keys already in my palm. The engine turned over with a low rumble. The phone's glow dimmed when the screen timed out the notification still unfinished in the background. East Washington Avenue waited ahead again, long enough for the next thought to find me. Chapter 3. The drive home didn't give me any answers, just a long stretch of road where every red light pushed another thought forward. Once inside, the apartment boots kicked aside, I opened my laptop and checked the account again. Curiosity pulled me deeper than the missing bonus. Weeks of statements sat there waiting. Small withdrawals appeared, 20 here, 40 there, odd charges tied to online purchases I didn't remember making. They slipped in at irregular hours, never enough to trigger alerts, all sharing a pattern. Same vendor, same frequency. The dates lined up with weekends. Lydia said she was short on gas money or needed help covering something for Marcus's family. A part of me asked whether I'd forgotten these charges. Maybe I'd agreed over the phone once or twice. Memory can play tricks when you're juggling long hours at the plant. Another thought crept in, softer but sharper. Maybe she hadn't taken anything without asking, just borrowed during a tight month. She'd been under pressure before. Young couples stretch their budget thin. Plenty of parents help out. That line of thinking soothed nothing. Trying to give her the benefit of the doubt only tangled me in knots. By the time night covered the windows, my eyes felt raw from staring at numbers. The phone rang. The caller ID showed the bank's fraud department. My stomach tightened. A man introduced himself politely, then continued. "Mr. Hale, we detected several failed login attempts on your account tonight. Someone entered your personal info, but couldn't pass the final verification. We wanted to confirm whether that was you." "No," I answered. He paused. "If this continues, we may need to freeze access temporarily. We recommend updating your password and reviewing any authorized users." "Understood." The call ended, but the weight of it didn't. Someone had tried getting in again. Not just once, multiple attempts. That ruled out mistakes or confusion. I opened the settings panel and began changing everything: passwords, recovery questions, phone verification. Access Lydia once used for emergencies became disabled. A small relief ran through me once the system confirmed the update. Precautions weren't enough anymore, so I downloaded the entire transaction history into a separate folder. Labeling it Records felt too vague. I renamed it Truth. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time my eyes closed, that fraud alert replayed. When the alarm finally went off, my head throbbed from a night that hadn't restored much. On the way to work, the phone rang again. Lydia's name lit the screen. I answered. "You changed the password," she demanded. "Why would you do that? Marcus's parents asked about the ski trip receipts, and now we look ridiculous because we can't pull anything up." Her tone sliced before I could reply. Something in her voice wasn't concern. It was accusation. "You made it awkward for us," she added. "They think I made the whole thing up. Do you have any idea how that feels?" I kept my breathing steady. "You shouldn't be in my account," I said. Marcus jumped in from the background. "Rayman, you're being tense over pocket change. You gotta chill. Nobody stole anything." "That account is mine," I said, sharper this time. "Money I earned stays where I put it." Lydia's voice cracked into a sob. "So now I'm a thief. That's what you think I told them. You offered to help. I told them you were proud of us. Now I look like I lied to everyone." She didn't wait for an answer, just hung up. The line went dead, leaving a buzzing ring in my ear. Any doubt about whether she understood the issue fell away. She knew. She simply didn't care. Work didn't offer much distraction. I fixed a conveyor belt for the better part of an hour, then checked temperatures on a cooling line. Marina spotted me near the supply rack. "You're dragging," she said. "Rough morning." "Busy one," slipped out. It wasn't the truth, but it was the version I had energy for. She hesitated, tapping the edge of her clipboard. "I saw your daughter's photos last week. The ones thanking you. Thought you'd be at that lodge with them." "No," I replied. Something passed over her face, gentle but blunt. "Ray, people who brag about money someone else spent usually do it because they think that person will never push back." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Her eyes softened. Then she walked off without insisting on anything more. By late afternoon, exhaustion gnawed at me. When the shift ended, I changed out of my work coat and headed toward the parking lot again. A coworker caught up to me near the exit. "Hey," he said, "my cousin thinks you're amazing for covering that ski trip. She said Lydia told everyone you volunteered the money." A dull pressure tightened behind my ribs. "She said that." "Yeah, whole family's impressed. Must have set you back a bit." He meant the comment kindly, but my throat felt dry. People were shaping the story in whatever way made them look good. My version barely existed outside my own head. Walking to my truck felt heavier than yesterday. Every step echoed with the same realization they'd taken control of the narrative, and they expected me to accept it. I unlocked the door, but didn't climb in, not right away. Something about that conversation with my coworker hit deeper than the bank alert or the missing bonus. If lies spread far enough, truth becomes a whisper. Instead of starting the engine, I pulled out my phone, opened a new folder, and dragged every screenshot message and transaction file into it. Then I created subfolders, dates, charges, conversations. Finger by finger, I organized each piece. The structure steadied me. A shadow shifted across the lot. Marina approached slowly. "You look worn out," she said, stopping beside the truck. "Listen, I shouldn't say this, but I've seen your daughter brag about that trip before. She acted like your wallet was the family's safety net. People notice things like that." Her words landed with a thud I didn't dodge. She kept her voice low. "They treat you like a resource, not like family, and you deserve better than that." Marina squeezed my shoulder lightly, then headed toward her sedan. Her steps faded, but the meaning stayed sharp. The phone still rested in my hand folder, open files lined up. A quiet hum from the truck's heater circled the cabin once I climbed in. Instead of driving, I stared at the screen, letting each file name anchor something in me. The pieces finally lined up. Chapter 4. The drive to Fitchburg didn't feel planned. My hands turned the wheel before my mind settled on a reason. By the time I pulled up to Lydia's place, voices carried through the door, lively, layered, everyone in good spirits after the trip. I stepped in without ceremony. Lydia's mother-in-law glanced over from the dining table, offering a polite nod before returning to her conversation. Bowls, plates, and leftover takeout covered the counter. Marcus stood near the living room, swiping through photos on his phone while a couple of relatives leaned in. He spotted me and lifted the phone as if presenting evidence. "Look at this run, Ray. Fresh powder all weekend," he said. "You should have come. Might have warmed things up for you." A few people laughed. None of them meant harm, but every note landed wrong. Lydia appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. "Dad, you didn't say you were coming." "I needed to talk with you," I replied. Marcus tucked his phone into his pocket and drifted closer, curiosity written all over his face. "I changed every password," I said, steady and clear. "All linked access is closed. No one gets into my accounts anymore. Not through old logins, not through family profiles. It's done." Lydia's expression stiffened. "You're punishing me." "That's not what this is." "That's exactly what it is," she shot back. "You ruined things with Marcus's parents because you got paranoid over a little money. They asked us to confirm receipts and we couldn't because you locked everything up." Her voice rose, grabbing the attention of everyone nearby. Several relatives stopped eating. Marcus stepped forward, shoulders squared. His tone dropped low, trying to sound reasonable but carrying a hint of warning. "In our family, men don't make life harder for their own. They support. They don't start policing every penny. Support, provide, give without asking questions." That was what he meant. "I'm not arguing with you," I answered. "But no one touches funds I earn unless I agree." Marcus's jaw tensed. "Then maybe talk to us like adults instead of running to the bank like we're criminals." "I protected what's mine," I said. Lydia stepped closer, tears pooling but her voice sharp enough to cut. "You don't trust your own daughter anymore. That's what everyone sees. My husband's family thinks you're cold. They think I lied because you wouldn't back me up." A murmur rippled across the room. All eyes turned toward me, as if some unspoken verdict hung in the air. The looks weren't hateful, just judgmental, in that way people adopt when they latch onto one version of events. The room swayed with unspoken blame. Lydia stood there trembling, making sure everyone saw her hurt. Marcus folded his arms, bracing for a fight he hoped I'd start. No amount of explaining would fix what they'd already decided. Words wouldn't shift a story they'd spent days spreading. I understood then that none of this centered on money anymore. It was about control. About rewriting what belonged to me as something owed to them. Lydia wiped her eyes dramatically. I never thought you'd treat me like some outsider. I'm your daughter. That doesn't give anyone access to my accounts, I replied. Her mother-in-law whispered something to another relative. A couple of heads shook sympathy, flowing toward Lydia, as if she'd endured some grave injustice. Marcus took another step, lowering his voice again. You're blowing this up. Just fix the password issue. Own that you approved the trip. Everyone already believes that. No, I said, and the word landed with more force than volume. I never approved it. Silence fell, not the gentle kind, but the type that pushes every person in the room to take a position. Lydia stared at me with something between disbelief and anger. Marcus frowned, realizing I wasn't bending. You made me look stupid, Lydia whispered. I'm your only child. And you made me look like a liar. You did that, I said, calm but unyielding. Tears spilled harder. A relative offered her a seat and rubbed her shoulder. She played into it, leaning into their hands as if she'd collapsed from emotional injury. Marcus exhaled through his nose. This is ridiculous. You're treating us like strangers. Strangers don't usually have access to my bank account, I replied. He scowled. Man, you're something else. My coat felt heavier. Not from weight, just from everything the last few minutes revealed. Lydia didn't see me as someone she should respect. Marcus saw me as a resource. Their relatives saw me as the unreasonable one, because they'd only been fed one narrative. I didn't sign up for this battle when I walked through the door, but it waited for me anyway. Lydia lifted her head. If Mom were here, she'd never treat me like this. The comment struck harder than anything else said that night. Not because it was true, because it wasn't. My late wife would have called out this behavior before it got this far. She understood boundaries, understood accountability. That memory steadied me. This isn't about punishment, I said slowly. This is about what's mine. No shouting followed, no dramatic flair. A few relatives exchanged glances. Some avoided my gaze entirely. The division was set. They'd cast me in the role that suited their comfort. I reached for the doorknob. Lydia didn't call after me. Marcus didn't ask me to stay. Their silence told me everything I needed to know. Cold air brushed my face as the door closed behind me. My feet carried me toward the driveway on their own. The sky stretched across Fitchburg in a dull smear of color, and the neighborhood settled into its evening rituals. None of it mattered. On the walk to my truck, a single thought pressed through the clutter. This wasn't over. And they weren't done. Chapter 5. The steering wheel vibrated faintly under my hands as the phone started ringing. An unfamiliar number flashed, but something told me to pick up. A man cleared his throat on the other end. Mr. Hale, this is Turner from the bank. We spoke a few months back when you set up the separate account. Yes, I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. I wanted to alert you to an internal case that came through. There's a claim stating you voluntarily transferred funds to a family member, then later denied doing so. Our system flagged it because it contradicts your recent fraud report. My foot eased off the gas. The car drifted toward the shoulder before I corrected it. What claim escaped before I could restrain the question? Turner continued carefully. The file includes a written note from your daughter. It says you approved the transfer but forgot due to stress. We're required to verify disputes of this nature. A dry heat spread across my chest. Lydia hadn't just twisted the story, she'd formalized it. Submitted something that sounded official, something meant to overwrite my version. A deliberate step, not a misunderstanding. I didn't authorize anything I said. I understand, Turner replied. Given the conflicting statements, I suggest collecting any communications you have. Messages, call logs, anything that supports your report. He paused. I'm sorry, sir. These cases get messy when family is involved. The call ended after a few more procedural details. The line dropped, but the noise in my head didn't. Back at my apartment, the door closed with a weight that wasn't physical. Shoes were kicked aside, though I barely felt them leave my feet. I went straight to the laptop, opened the folder labeled Truth, and began sifting through every screenshot, every bank notification, every proof I had saved over the last few days. Patterns glared at me. repeated charges, logged access from Lydia's device, messages where she framed it as borrowing, not as something I volunteered. All of it aligned into a picture that didn't resemble an accident. It resembled intent. The longer I stared at the timeline, the clearer the shape became. The bonus wasn't a one-time slip. It was the largest withdrawal in a series of smaller ones. The fraudulent claim wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a cover. My phone buzzed again. A knock followed almost immediately. Marina's voice came muffled through the door. "Ray, you home?" I opened it without speaking. She stepped in holding a printout. "I thought you might need this," she said, setting the page on the table. It was a screenshot Lydia had posted publicly, her family in full ski gear, mountains behind them, the caption in bold letters. "Thanks, Dad, for the trip of a lifetime. Someone at work showed me earlier," Marina said. "Thought you should see the version they're telling everyone." The words blurred for a second. She rested one hip against a chair and folded her arms. No lecture, no demands, just presence. "They're building a narrative," she added quietly. "You need to keep your own side intact." My hands pressed against the table to anchor myself. Marina stayed close but didn't crowd me. Nothing about her posture pushed or rushed. She knew men like me didn't respond well to force. Silence stretched. Not peaceful, more like the pause before something breaks loose. A memory surfaced, uninvited, me collapsing near the maintenance bay last year, clutching my chest while the world spun. The medic rushing in, someone calling Lydia to tell her. Later, when I reached her by phone, her voice came sharp and dismissive. "Dad, don't make a big deal out of everything. I'm busy." I'd convinced myself she didn't mean it the way it sounded. People say careless things when overwhelmed. I'd excused it the same way I excused a dozen other moments. Another memory hit next. Standing outside the hospital after my wife died, Lydia sobbing into my jacket. I promised her then that I'd take care of her no matter what. That promise had driven every decision since. I didn't notice when it turned into permission for her to take what she wanted. Marina must have recognized something shifting in my expression. She sat down in the chair beside me. "You all right?" she asked. A shake of the head wasn't enough, but words didn't come easy. She didn't fill the space, just waited. The realization formed slowly like a bruise rising beneath the skin. I'd spent years making sure Lydia had everything she needed because I believed losing her mother meant I had to carry double. That guilt tied a leash around my decisions. Every withdrawal, every boundary I let, slide it all traced back to that same impulse, compensate for what life took from her. That impulse finally reached its limit. My phone vibrated again, multiple messages this time. "Marcus, you need to fix things with the bank. You're making Lydia look crazy. Tell them you authorized the trip. Clean this up before it gets worse." One more came through. "Don't ruin our reputation over something this small." Every text reeked of pressure, as if my only job in their lives was to protect whatever image they'd crafted. The screen dimmed before the next message popped up. "Marcus again. Call the bank and retract the complaint. Do it tonight." A choice stood in front of me. Bend to keep the peace or finally take control of the life I kept letting other people handle. Marina leaned forward slightly. "What's he saying?" "Nothing worth answering," I said. The phone buzzed again. I turned it face down. A long breath steadied me. The cursor blinked on the laptop screen, hovering over the folder full of evidence. Each file name reflected another moment I'd looked away, another time Lydia and Marcus counted on me not standing up for myself. Ray, Marina said gently, "Be careful with whatever you decide next." A nod was all I managed. My hand moved toward the laptop. The folder opened. One document after another loaded on the screen. Patterns, dates, statements, everything I needed stared back at me. I clicked the first file again, then the next. A slow certainty formed, not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. The phone continued to buzz nearby. I didn't touch it. Pages turned. Screens scrolled. Evidence lined up, piece by piece. Chapter 6. The cursor blinked on the blank spreadsheet, like it was waiting for me to decide what kind of man I wanted to be next. I started pulling every transaction from the bank's archive, dragging months of statements into the document. Dates lined up in one column, charge descriptions in another, timestamps forming patterns I hadn't bothered to notice earlier. Lydia's login history was available too. A separate report showed exactly when her device accessed the account. Hours passed in steady motions, sorting, highlighting, attaching screenshots. Anger didn't fuel any of it. Something colder did. A part of me that had been buried under guilt and habit began taking the wheel. The emotional noise faded, replaced by precision. Marina stopped by after her shift. She carried 2 cups of tea, set one beside me, then leaned over the laptop. "You're building a whole case file," she said. "It needs to be organized." She took a seat and pulled the chair closer. "Show me the messages." My phone unlocked, and she started skimming through the threads I'd bookmarked. She pointed. "Group these by intent, requests, excuses, pressure. It'll help if you ever need to explain the timeline." "Why would I need to came out before I caught it?" She raised an eyebrow. "Because people like Lydia and Marcus don't stop when you take something back. They try to reshape the story so you look unreasonable." Her words didn't sting. They matched what I already knew. We worked through everything together, creating folders labeled withdrawals, conversations, and false claims. By the time she left, the file looked less like a scattered list of complaints and more like documented proof. Morning brought a new layer of resolve. I carried the printed packet to the local bank branch. Turner, the same man who'd called earlier, recognized my name and led me to a small desk. "I'd like all access revoked," I told him. "No linked devices, no family permissions, nothing she can use." He nodded and typed quickly. "We can also submit a formal statement regarding unauthorized access. It creates an internal record." "That's fine," I said. "Do it." He printed a set of forms, and I signed them without hesitation. Whatever softness I used to bring into decisions like this had disappeared sometime during the night. When I finished, Turner lowered his voice. "If someone files another claim, this documentation will protect you." "Good." Back in the truck, I texted Marina to let her know I'd completed the paperwork. She responded with a simple thumbs-up emoji and a single line, "Don't let them twist this." The rest of the day moved in small pieces. I returned home, reviewed the documents again, and then reorganized the entire folder. It wasn't obsession. It was preparation. Late afternoon brought unexpected company. A knock sounded, followed by a cautious voice. "Ray, it's Daniel." Marcus's older brother stood in the hallway, shoulders hunched slightly, as though unsure he should be there. Daniel had always been polite. Nothing like Marcus's posturing. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside to let him in. He kept his hands clasped, gaze drifting toward the floor. "I don't want trouble," he started. "But I should probably tell you something I saw a while back." His throat worked as he swallowed. "During that barbecue in August, Lydia used your phone to get a code. She said you asked her to pay a bill for you, a one-time thing. But she did it fast, like she knew exactly where to go." A knot tightened at the base of my neck. He continued, Marcus. "He has a habit of pushing people until they give in. I've seen him do it with coworkers, even our parents. He keeps turning things until it's easier to just let him win." The admission didn't surprise me. It simply confirmed everything I'd already pieced together. "Thanks for telling me," I said. "You're not going to tell them I said anything, right?" "No." Relief softened his face. "I figured you deserved to know. They're saying you're causing drama. But from what I've heard, they're the ones trying to force your hand." He left soon after, and the apartment returned to its usual stillness. I sat at the table, letting his words fold into everything else I'd collected. The pattern sharpened even more. Then another notification buzzed across my laptop screen, this one from my work email. "Unusual login attempt detected." The location tag listed a state 2 regions away. Someone had tried to reach my professional account. A ripple of unease moved through my chest, but the fear didn't root itself. It slid off. I took a screenshot, saved it to the evidence folder, and forwarded it to the plant's IT department with a short note. "Not me. Please investigate. Minutes later, a second alert hit my phone, another attempt blocked again. Someone was escalating. I grabbed my jacket and headed out to report the intrusion in person. The factory's security office processed it quickly, assuring me they'd lock everything down and generate a trace report. Walking back through the parking area, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Stop before this mess gets bigger." No signature, no context. But the timing told me everything. Screenshots went straight into the folder. Marina called an hour later. "Did you get into the bank okay?" "Yes." "What else happened today?" "A few things," I said. She exhaled through the receiver. "Ray, this is turning into something dangerous. Marcus doesn't understand boundaries. Lydia's matching his energy. You need to be careful." A pause stretched long enough for her to add, "Are you scared yet?" The question hung there. Words didn't follow. My eyes stayed fixed on the laptop screen, scanning the files again, adding notes in the margins. Her voice softened. "You're shutting down. I know that look." A breath moved through me. "I'm working," I said. She didn't push. She'd learned that some men fall silent, not because they're defeated, but because they're preparing. The line stayed open for another moment before she murmured, "Call me if it gets worse," and ended the call. The cursor blinked again on the open folder. Papers spread across the table. My phone lay face down next to the laptop, the threat message still unread, but stored. The night settled in as I adjusted another file, then another, slowly shaping the truth into something no one could rewrite. Chapter 7. The supervisor tapped on my workstation and asked me to follow him. No explanation. No small talk. Just a gesture toward the narrow conference room near the break area. 2 HR staff members waited at the table, along with a representative from security. Their expressions told me everything before a single word landed. One folder sat in the middle. "Ray," the supervisor began, "we received a complaint this morning. A serious one." He opened the folder and read from a printed page. "It states you've been using company systems to gather personal data on family members. It also says you threatened them using information from your banking accounts." The words rolled out as if they belonged to someone else's life. My chest stayed steady. No surprise, no protest. They'd finally escalated to the point where dragging my job into the mess felt appropriate to them. The HR rep leaned forward. "Can you explain any of this?" I reached into my backpack and set a binder on the table tabs, documents, dates, screenshots, everything I'd spent nights assembling. "These are the unauthorized transactions," I said. "These are the login attempts that triggered fraud alerts. These show which devices accessed my accounts." The security rep skimmed the first page, then another. "This is organized," he murmured. The supervisor looked at me. "You're saying the complaint is false?" "I'm saying I'm the one who's been targeted, not them." No raised voice, no drama, just the statement clean and simple. They took the binder, flipped through more pages, and exchanged glances. HR asked a few clarifying questions. Dates whether I had shared passwords voluntarily, whether I'd confronted the family members involved. I answered each one without embellishment. After 30 minutes, the supervisor closed the folder with the complaint still inside. "We won't be moving forward with disciplinary action," he said. "But this issue may generate attention on the floor. I'd suggest staying focused today." Meaning people talk. And they already had. The rest of the shift stretched out unevenly. Some co-workers stole glances at me. Others avoided eye contact altogether. A few whispered in small clusters. Rumors travel fast in a plant, faster than truth, faster than integrity, faster than any attempt to correct them. A couple of men I'd known for years treated me like I might snap, or like I'd already done something unhinged. Every stare slid off me. The binder's weight had settled into my bones. I knew where things were heading. Later in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. Lydia's name lit the screen. I stepped into a hallway and answered. "What did you do?" she cried immediately. "You made everything worse." Her voice shook, but not from fear. For her, it always came from pressure. "I heard from Marcus's mom," she continued. "They think I created the banking note on purpose. They think I lied. Dad, you destroyed my reputation in that family. This isn't about your reputation, I said. It is for me. You humiliated us. You embarrassed Marcus. Do you know what his parents are saying? You made it sound like I stole from you. Her story kept shifting mid-sentence. Each accusation contradicted the last, like she was scrambling to find the version that would corner me again. I didn't feed any of it. Silence on my end only pushed her deeper. You should have talked to me, she said, voice cracking. You should have protected us instead of blowing everything apart. She didn't understand that the US she referenced didn't include me. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. The call ran until she dissolved into half-formed arguments that circled the same point her life was unraveling, and I was supposed to fix it. Eventually, she hung up. I slipped the phone into my pocket and walked back to the line. A few hours later, just as my shift ended, a new email arrived. Fraud investigation update. The subject read, the bank had pulled access logs from the week of the missing bonus. The device ID matched one tied to Lydia. They also matched several smaller withdrawals over months. The note ended with, this evidence supports your claim. I didn't feel triumph, just confirmation. Pulling into my apartment complex that night, headlights swept across a figure standing in front of my door. Marcus. Shoulders squared, fists clenched. His whole posture radiated offense. He stormed toward me as soon as I stepped out. You think you're clever? He barked. You think you can go behind our backs and drag Lydia through hell? She dragged herself through it, I said. He waved a stack of papers, something printed, maybe something he wrote up. You're signing this. It says you approved the trip and you misunderstood the withdrawals. You'll submit it to the bank and fix all of this. I'm not signing anything. His jaw flexed. If you don't, this gets ugly. You're tearing this family apart. That family isn't mine, I replied. Open the door, he demanded. We're doing this inside. No. I stayed on my side of the frame, holding the door closed between us. Marcus slammed his palm against it. Open it, Ray. Stop acting like a victim. Another hit. Louder. Then another. The hallway echoed with each strike. A neighbor cracked their door open just an inch. Someone shouted down the hall, Hey, what's going on? Marcus backed up, scanning the hallway like a cornered animal. Panic flickered through him. He wasn't brave, just manipulative. Threats work only when no one else is watching. Feet pounded on the stairwell. We're calling the police, a voice yelled. Marcus stepped back, cursed under his breath, and bolted down the hall. My hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from adrenaline cooling too fast. The apartment felt strangely still as I closed the door behind me. I set the binder on the table and sank into the chair. Months of excuses, guilt, manipulation, bending, tolerating it all collapsed into a single line of thought. I finally saw the situation without distortion. The phone rang again. Unknown number, I answered. Mr. Hale, a formal voice, said, This is the legal compliance office from the bank. We'd like to confirm whether you want to proceed with a formal investigation. Your evidence is strong, but we need your explicit authorization. I stared at the binder. Yes, I said, I do. Understood. We'll move forward. You'll receive a case number tonight. The call ended. The room stayed still. Papers fanned out across the table, each one a piece of truth reclaimed. I slid one page aside, then another, clearing space in front of me as the next step formed quietly in my head. Chapter 8. The bank's lobby was half full when I walked in, but the noise blurred into a hum that didn't touch me. Turner waved me over and guided me to a small glass office. A stack of documents waited on the desk. These authorize the full investigation, he said. Fraud, unauthorized access, and misrepresentation. My hand moved steadily across each signature line. He reviewed everything twice, stamped the final page, and slid a copy into a folder. That's it, Mr. Hale, he said. The case is formally open. A steady breath left my lungs, not dramatic, not shaky, just lighter than anything I'd felt in weeks. Outside, the air hit my face as I stepped onto the pavement. I paused near the parking lot, watching the steady flow of cars. Something heavy that had been sitting between my ribs finally eased. Not gone, but loosened. Back home, the binder sat where I'd left it. A blank will lay beside it, the one I'd picked up from a legal self-help kiosk downtown. I filled in each line carefully. Beneficiaries, assets, protections. Lydia's name didn't appear anywhere. Every item moved into a trust she couldn't touch or challenge. The pen didn't hesitate. When I finished, I folded the documents, placed them in an envelope, and sealed it with my thumb. A knock sounded. Marina stepped in, holding a metal food container. "I brought stew," she said. "You probably forgot to eat." She set it down and studied my face. "You did the right thing." Those 4 words hit with more force than any argument I'd had in months. They didn't let me off the hook. They acknowledged the cost. I nodded. She didn't stay long, just squeezed my shoulder gently before heading out. By the end of that week, word spread faster than I expected. Marcus's relatives pointed fingers not at me, but at Lydia. They claimed she'd dragged their family name into legal trouble. Marcus and his parents argued loudly in the background of Lydia's voicemails, blaming her for everything. Whatever unity she thought she had was cracking. A letter came from the police department a few days later, an official notice requesting Lydia to appear for questioning regarding unauthorized access to my accounts. I didn't respond. She tried calling. Marcus tried too. I ignored both. When the appointment date arrived, I stayed home, made coffee, and reorganized a drawer. There was nothing left to say, nothing I owed them. A few weeks passed before the next update reached me. Lydia's mother-in-law cornered her during a family birthday gathering and scolded her in front of everyone. Someone else told Marcus's employer about the disturbance at my apartment. He'd always been careless, loud, confrontational. The report pushed his manager over the edge. Marcus lost his position. I heard all of this through people who hadn't originally taken my side, but now spoke freely. Once lies fell apart, truth traveled more easily. I didn't celebrate, didn't feel vindicated. Things simply shifted into the alignment they were always meant to take. Actions met consequences. Nothing more. Life moved on with a steadier rhythm. I found an apartment near Lake Mendota, a place with fewer neighbors, fewer memories, and more room to breathe. Weekends became simpler. Long walks by the water. Volunteer hours at a community bike repair group. People who greeted me without knowing anything about my past gave me a sense of normalcy I hadn't realized I missed. One evening after a shift at the plant, my phone vibrated. A voicemail from Lydia. Her voice trembled. "Dad, can we talk? I know things got out of hand. I know you're angry. But I need to explain. Please just meet me." One time, I listened to the entire message, every word. She tried sounding remorseful, but the thread of expectation remained the assumption that no matter what she did, I'd eventually come running. The message ended, and I set the phone on the counter. No reply came. Later, I pulled on my jacket and stepped out of the apartment. The early evening air met me cool enough to keep my thoughts sharp. Mendota's shoreline wasn't far. My steps settled into a steady pace as the path curved toward the water. I wasn't walking away from anything, not escaping, not hiding. The road ahead wasn't the one I planned years ago, but it was mine again, untangled, unclaimed, unpressured. The shoreline opened up and I kept going.